silverlungs.com to learn more about how the Silver Lung system works. As well, we are always ready to answer any questions you may have. That's www.silverlungs.com.
Alex Jones here with vital information concerning our nation's fragile food supply. Folks, there are some truly dangerous trends forming, and I think it's important for my listeners to do three things right away. Number one, study the past. History really does repeat itself. Number two, learn to spot the dangerous food shortage trends. Number three, take decisive action. A perfect storm is brewing for a global food crisis. That's why I'm telling everyone to read the new book, Rising Prices, Empty Shelves. Warning signs that trigger the deadliest famines in history. Don't get caught unprepared when the crisis hits. This book is only available at risingpricesemptyshelves.com. You'll also get a free copy of Supermarket Survival, How to Cut Your Grocery Bills in Half. Again, that website is risingpricesemptyshelves.com. That's risingpricesemptyshelves.com. Hi, folks. This is Alex Jones. I'm looking for people that have the wisdom to spot savings, opportunity, and recognize risk. Saving means to make money. The Cal Ben Pure Soap Company can save you thousands of dollars and give you good old-fashioned real soaps that are triple concentrated and twice as good as what you're using now. Soaps made from vegetable and coconut oils that contain no useless dyes, perfumes, deodorants, or antibacterials. Your risk is the hundreds of hazardous toxic detergents that give you rashes, itching sores, and deteriorating clothing called lint. If you want something better, if you want something you've never had before, you have to do something you've never done before. Getting a free catalog is easy by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. Take charge of your health now by calling 800-340-7091 or see Calvin on the web at 5starsoap.com. You know, I think the point that I need to make, again, because it's so central, is that it is mentally ill to know that the government is run by corrupt, ruthless special interests who are above the law and are getting away with crazier and crazier stuff by the day. And then to continue, though, to believe anything the government or the media owned by these big banks tells you. That is crazy. I mean, if you had an employee that had lied to you 10 times, you'd fire him for sure on the second or third time. It wouldn't get to 10. If you had a neighbor that constantly lied to you, after 3 or 4 times, you'd learn that guy's bad news, and you'd stop talking to them. You might even move. I know I've moved before when I've had bad neighbors. But instead, because we don't feel like we can get rid of these criminals, we just kind of give in to them. Well, that's what the pimp does. You know, he slaps me across the face. It's really a broken attitude. So, yes, the people know, on average, every poll shows it, the vast majority, over 80%, know the government killed Kennedy, know the Federal Reserve's private ripping us off, and know that we're in trouble. And don't want the TSA sticking their hands down our pants. That's right at 90%. And don't want it at the NFL. That's above 85%. But the establishment's answer is not going to be, oh, well, we'll just go away. No, they're used to having their way. That's why they've proposed martial law in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's why all over the country they're just banning citizens' communications or arresting people that try to politely bring up government corruption at city council meetings. That's why the North Carolina governor, the media is trying to say it was a joke now, but he told the newspaper it was not a joke. He said it seriously, that because of the crisis, they should just suspend Congress, suspend elections for 2 years, which would be suspending Congress. It wouldn't be a real Congress anymore. And that's all part and parcel with the super Congress making the spending decisions on what bills get brought forward. That is the power of the purse. Out of the general house into a super Congress. The Senate now is involved in bringing forward, because there's senators that are on it, along with House members, bringing forward spending legislation, completely unconstitutional. And then even, so-called patriots and people out there can't get their minds around the fact that this is new and draconian. They're like, well, we've had special committees before. Not like this one, we haven't. Ron Paul got it right and said it's not in the Constitution. But that's not even strong enough language for what we're dealing with. So what happens is people just get accustomed to tyranny by degree, and they make more and more and more and more excuses for it. Look at this stack of news right here. In fact, if you give me a document cam shot in there, prisonplanet.tv folks can watch this. All this news is up at Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com if you're a radio listener, and you can go check it out. OnStar kills plan to track ex-subscribers. Every time they get criticized for this by the alternative media and it gets picked up, they say, okay, well, we won't do that now. You notice they send a message out saying, even if you opt out or turn off the service, we're going to have audio link and listen to you, and we're going to track everywhere you go, and we're going to sell that to insurance companies and the government. I mean, you don't think they're just, you have all this technology because they care about you. You don't just think you get a digital cable box because they love you. It's tracking everything you do. There was a public school in California, another one in Pennsylvania. A few years ago, they came out and said, kids, be good. We're watching you at home over your laptop. And it was a minority of parents came out and said, well, that's Big Brother. And the school said, no, that's safety. And then the school had such disdain. When they got criticized, they suddenly switched gears and lied and said, we're not listening or watching you. They said, but you were on the news. Here you are saying it. So lawsuits were filed and the thousands of videos. It was tens of thousands of videos and tens of thousands of photos of kids in the shower. The school administrators, the teachers could hardly get their work done watching the kids at home. Police were calling kids into the principal's office because they were seen eating pills. Turned out it was Skittles. And I've noticed that when I was warning people about this beforehand, when these big companies were bragging in their stock prospectus boil downs and stockholder reports that they were watching everybody at home and tracking everybody and listening to everybody, and every major company was doing it. Telecommunications Act since 96, everything wired in by federal regulatory law to do this. But see, they weren't ready for the public to know about that at that time. So I'd talk about it and show documents. They'd be like, national TV, local news. This guy is a lunatic. The government, the corporations would never do that to you. Now that we've been eased into this, they're like, oh, yeah, every big company's doing it. That's actually their biggest profit margin. Why, the major pizza chains are now, in some cases, making more money per quarter on tips to law enforcement because they get 25% of the fines and fees than they do off pizza sales. I remember seeing a case, must have been 15, 16 years. No, my grandfather was really still alive and in good shape then. I guess that was actually I was in high school. That was like 20 years ago. And I remember I used to go over some Sundays and watch 60 Minutes when my grandma made dinner. Grandma's still alive. And watch 60 Minutes. I'll never forget watching 60 Minutes. And it was about how the airline ticket people, in many cases, make double or triple. One lady was paid 30-something thousand a year, and she's made over $100,000 that year when people paid cash calling air marshals on them. And then they would just confiscate the cash and go, you shouldn't have $10,000. And it was a case of where the guy sued and fought back. He was from South Carolina, flying to Houston, and he liked the cash business. It turned out his taxes were all paid and everything. And then he'd get a discount for paying cash. He was an old guy on the barrelhead. For the trees, they would then ship by 18-wheeler, a whole bunch of 18-wheelers up to the Carolinas. And they took his $10,000 and everything. And it turned out that ticket teller was getting some of the money. I remember watching 60 Minutes, actually a pretty good show sometimes, because kind of old line journalism. You know, they're still globalists, but they're so arrogant and want to be on top that they still report on things about major hospitals killing people for their organs. And of course, it was the usual suspect, Illinois, New York, places like that. And of course, just a few years before, when my dad said, do not sign your organ donor card, word is in Dallas hospitals, they won't save you and will harvest your organs. And my dad was a dentist, oral surgeon, and had worked rewiring jaws and things in hospitals and knew a lot of doctors. But I still remember thinking my dad was crazy when I was doing my driving test when I was 15. He said, do not sign that organ donor card, son. Do not sign it. Because the word is, doctors in town say don't sign it. But that's just a doctor-to-doctor thing, you see. And I'm thinking, my dad is a funny guy, he's a smart guy, but come on. This stuff isn't true. And then 60 Minutes, they're taking your organs. They caught him in Austin taking organs of people and letting them die to get them, and taking their corneas. That's the big ones. They even had one case where they thought they'd let the guy die, and they'd let the anesthesia go away, and they'd already taken one of his kidneys. That happened a few years ago, and he woke up and on the operating table, and the doctors were like, put him down, and a nurse rebelled, so the guy got sewed up and lived. That's why we know about it. But you know, that's how crime works, though. Because that's how those hospitals work. They'll give those doctors a little cut on the side of the 400, 500,000 organs they'll pull out of somebody. And see, it's only our naivete that allows all this to happen. I know I keep going back to that. But I talk to men and women and others, and they can be successful business people, but if they're not tuned into the real world, they're only specialized in their area, and they care about going to the movies or playing golf or collecting wristwatches or motorcycles or whatever it is. You tell them basic stuff that's absolute fact, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. In fact, this morning I was listening to this local talk show host, and he was talking about the conspiracy theorist that don't like OnStar listening to you and tracking you. So see, I was a kook before for saying it was happening, but now I'm still a kook. I'm still a kook now that it has come out and is admitted. I'm a kook for not liking it. That's like medical device seller guy I talked to on air, but I've talked to other people in person it's happened to. And he went back to his company many years. He said, look, I want to start working in the office. I want a desk job, even if it's a pay cut. Because I am tired of having my genitals grabbed all the time and going through this, and they want to put me in microwave scanners. And his boss said, well, so you're a conspiracy theorist now. Now, let's get this straight. He doesn't like going in a microwave oven. He doesn't like having his space violated. This is not disputed. This is going on. Not liking it is a conspiracy theorist. And, you know, some of these local shows, I only try to call in every 2-3 months. And this particular show, I've called him before, and this call screener says, no, Alex. I actually know the program director, and he's like, oh, please call him. We'd love to have you on any of the shows. But, you know, the call screener, oh, I talked to the host. They don't want your input. They just want to sit there and make jokes about me. Or when somebody calls in and brings up a fact, well, hey, Ron Paul's actually winning many of these polls and in second or third place. Oh, yeah, and they start playing X-Files music or Imperial Battle March and go, that sounds like Alex Jones. Turning the light on at night if you go outside to put something in the trash can is evil, is a conspiracy theory. Thinking, being involved, watching your step, it's weird. You see, it's an attribute to be a sucker, to be a chump, to be an idiot. I mean, this is beyond 1984. In this nightmare, horrid future that he foresaw under English socialism, Eric Blair, pen name George Orwell, imagined where there's cameras and microphones at the park hidden, and where your TV watches you two-way. I mean, I remember a engineer from Time Warner contacting me 15 years ago, and then even coming to my house and meeting with me. and showing me the Scientific Atlantic cable box and showing me how there was a built-in microphone and explaining that it wasn't in the manual, it wasn't advertised what you would use it for, and that it was two-way. And that they were going to come out with DVR systems soon, other companies were, and that it was going to track everything you did. Of course, now that's all admitted. And I went on air and warned people and got laughed at. And then years later, I had a Time Warner cable guy at the house, one of the installers. And I said, you know, that's got a microphone.